Good evening, all. It's Martin Ali from Lincoln Spirit Seekers. We're back doing lives, thank God. It's been such a long time. So we've got a special guest on tonight. We've got Catherine from LSS USA. We've got Wendy. We've got Rachel from PARAUNITY events. So it's going to be a laugh. It's going to be good. Let's go for it. And people that do comment tonight, could you please put your name as well? For some reason, it's not showing your name. So if you could put your comment, that'd be great. So then we can communicate with you as well. So we'll go to Rachel, then Catherine.
Hi, my name's Rachel and I work for PARAUNITY events. Welcome all.
Hello, I'm Kathleen Thomas. I'm from LSS USA.
Wendy.
Wendy. I'm co-owner and
There's my Rachel Darby. How are you?
And hi, is it my go to introduce myself?
Okay.
Yeah, hi, good everyone. Good evening. My name's Medium Joe. I'm on the podcast this evening. Thank you ever so much for having me on. Really appreciate it. From the lovely Grimsby area, my little Grimsby sound mug as well. Thank you for having me on.
Hi, from Grimsby.
Yes.
Same here.
Yes.
Yes, I'm from Grimsby as well. Did you go and do the singing down the pier the other day?
No, I didn't, but I was watching, obviously, the Mariners at the weekend on Sunday, so that was my highlight over the weekend.
Definitely. Right. I'll let Wendy take over tonight, so she can do a lot of talk. She knows what life's about. Let's go for it.
yeah. First of all, thank you, Rachel. I'm so glad you like your new home, even though I knew you were going into it before you. So, Joe. Sorry. Do you prefer Joe or Joseph?
Either is absolutely fine. Call me Joe. It's fine. It's fine.
Okay, Joe. So, what got you started in the spiritual side of things before we go into the poltergeist that you had?
Yeah, so it was probably about 18, 19 years old when I was a mechanic. It kind of something that came on quite thick and fast. Before that, I absolutely never even knew what a medium or psychic was. Never had an experience. The only experience I'd ever had was really about Ghostbusters and watching that. You know, I was obsessed with that growing up. But it kind of come from being in a workshop and finding out this workshop was haunted and having it sort of experiences within that setting. So one of the big things that happened was I heard someone run up some metal stairs about 3 foot away from me. You know, it's so palpable and so real at that time. It's quite interesting. That then led me subsequently to the local spiritualist church, and it kind of went from there. You know, at that time, 18, 19, knowing that people could maybe communicate with spirits and do psychic stuff, it was just absolutely mind-blowing to me. So I kind of just immersed myself in this world, and 20 years later, here I am.
Wow. So what type of readings do you do?
So it's predominantly linking with spirit and those that have passed away. We have psychic aspects to that, but I love that nature of being able to connect with those that have passed away and work out who those individuals are as well, and kind of build that link and bring that healing through as well. I'm sure you guys well know when there's a need to heal someone, it tends to work at its purest and tends to work at its finest, and I love watching that process. For me, it's always been about the science behind this work as well. I'm absolutely fascinated with the mechanics about how it works, why it works, how to build that link with spirit over time. So that's kind of like another aspect of the readings I like to do. I like to be able to build that evidential aspect in, but also help people understand why it works in a certain way and the purpose for that as well.
I get that, because as a paranormal investigator, we tend to look into the scientific reasons behind stuff as well, and we try to debunk it, because obviously there can be a lot of sound and noise that can be moved from room to room sort of thing. So we try to debunk it before we can even class it as paranormal.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's really key, isn't it? I know when I do readings, I always try and be honest and genuine with people about that connection and that link of how it works as well. Because sometimes, people give information away from how they sit or from their facial responses.
Yeah.
And it's about being genuine with people about that and being honest with them. That, sometimes that happens, and that's where your evidential aspect then comes in as well. Because if you can give them facts and information about things that are going to happen in the future, like Wendy and that reading that she'd done for that lady in the house, that's really evidential, isn't it? And really impactful.
Yeah.
So we do have a question from Rachel Darby for you, Joe. Do you get spirits that talk to you when you're out shopping, and do you feel the need to pass the messages on to strangers?
So that is something that I like in mediumship, certainly for myself, is like learning instruments. Some people are naturally gifted at it, others have to learn it and graft over time. I was always the latter part. I always have to learn and grasp how to do it. Over time, the more I've had contact with spirit, and since that poltergeist experience that we'll come on into a little bit, it's become a lot more tangible and a lot more matter of fact in my everyday life. So I do have them try and communicate and pass things on. And it's very, very rare that I'll pass those messages on, because it's something that I do struggle with, because there is that pang in your stomach, almost like that desire to say it. But also as well, you've got to respect people's boundaries and values as well, because they may not appreciate passing that message on. So it's trying to juggle that and balance that sometimes as well. So yeah, that tends to happen. It doesn't happen always, but sometimes it does. And it's kind of difficult trying to manage that at times.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about, because I think Martin saw that in work on Sunday when that little girl fell.
Oh,
and I was wanting to say no, don't do it, but someone in the street going, don't put your child on your shoulders. And 5 seconds later, the little girl had an accident. So
Rachel Darby just thanked you for answering that question, Joe.
Yeah.
So it's quite hard.
Yeah, absolutely is. It's difficult, but it's part and parcel of that work, isn't it? And I think it opens up around the ethics around it as well. And we've got to try and balance that around sort of how it has an impact on our lives and how that impacts on others as well. So it's quite an interesting question, really.
Yes, definitely.
Kathleen, have you got a question?
We've all got questions.
I don't want to overtalk. What is it like when you actually communicate with spirits? Is it like just you can hear them? Can you feel them? Do they give you any other things besides?
Again, if we use the mechanics behind this work, I think, and use that instrument analogy, but in a slightly different way, we're all instruments of the spirit, and they all communicate with us in lots of different ways. And I think when I say to people I've been developing for 20 years, I absolutely have, because they still work and learn with you over a period of time, and it changes and it adapts. And quite often people see me squirm when I'm doing readings now. That never used to happen, and it's almost like their energies are becoming really close. And there's times where I won't be able to stop what's coming out of my mouth, so I can feel that link getting stronger and stronger. But that's only one part of it. There might be times whereby I might see them, or I might hear them, or I might sense a smell, or I might get a feeling. And the best way to describe it, I think it's like throwing puzzle pieces up in the air and trying to catch those puzzle pieces and piece it all together. Because you might be seeing all those different things simultaneously.
And don't forget, we've only got 15 minutes per person if we're doing church services.
Yeah, 100%, absolutely. And that's where that nature and that skill of it comes in. The other thing that I've found over the last couple of years is that things will happen in my week that then will be relevant to a reading. So a really good example of that is one of my friends talking to me about buying a Rolex, and then lo and behold, in a reading 2 days later, I'm talking to this lady about her dad's Rolex. So you find that sort of that synchronicity throughout your week as well. And again, that's part of the art of this work. It's learning those sort of signs that they give you over a period of time. But I love it. I love that complexity of it. And I think it opens up that wider question of why sometimes this doesn't work. Sometimes if you're not in the right headspace, or the sitter's not in the right headspace, or that energy is not right, all those things have to balance and be synced together in order to get that pure communication.
Yeah.
So lots of sort of different ways that they try and work for me. I'm sure my spirit guides have their head in the hands quite often when they do try and work for me in despair. But it's constant learning, so it's good.
I think mine go out to the pub.
Yeah, you might probably do as well, bless them.
Did you go to church and that spiritual church in Grimsby?
I've not been for a long time, so I do church services. I predominantly do charity work now, so I do private events. And as saying before we come on, I've raised about 20 grand, well over 20 grand in the last sort of 6-7 years for mediumship. I do demonstrations on a weekend at churches as and when I can. I'd love to be able to have the time to go to open circles and do more work with the church in general, but I just don't have that opportunity and I just don't have that time. That's partly because of my mediumship and the work I do away from that, but also as well being a father and having a full-time job as well. It can be quite sort of labour intensive.
Hello, Mark.
Hi, Mark.
So do you, obviously you started all this in Grimsby. Is it just Grimsby that you do, or do you sort of go all over with your readings and your charity work?
Yeah, it tends to be across the Lincolnshire area and into Manchester as well. I don't do lots in Hull, interestingly, because I live in Barton, which is obviously nearer Hull, but I tend to do much that way on. But I tend to go across the country and have people come and visit me as well. Very fortunate sometimes to do readings across the pond in other countries as well, but that tends to be over Zoom or over Teams and those sort of things as well. But it's fitting it all in, you know. Being a dad is kind of my number one priority, so kind of balance it all around that as well.
Yeah. So do you prefer to do lives or sorry, Wendy, go on.
I think I'm quite lucky that my kids are all grown up, so
yeah, absolutely.
I don't think they want to spend time with us at the moment.
Yeah.
I find it hard at the moment. Everything that I do, my little one wants to be attached to me, you know what I mean? So it's hard to, like, I understand where Joe's coming from. It's like you priorities as well, but it's like trying to like fit everything in, and it's like, you know, you're so busy, and you've got to put priorities. Always put the kids always first in everything you do.
Yeah.
So let's talk about these poltergeist activities and stuff.
Yeah.
That you've had.
So maybe if I give you a bit of background on the type of mediumship that I like and the reason why I find this case so fascinating. I would try and keep quite succinct with it and quite direct. A lot happened during that period, but my job away from this work is I'm a mental health professional. I'm a approved mental health professional. I work in the court protection. I have a Bachelor of Science First Class Honours degree. You know, I have multiple post-grad qualifications. And I have a fascination and such an interest in evidence-based ways of working and evidence-based ways of investigating as well. So I do a lot of research into the Society for Psychical Research. I do a lot of research into physical phenomena and physical mediumship. Steve Parsons, who is his book on studying spontaneous cases, which guys would fall into, you know, his book and approach that is just absolutely just my Bible for dealing with this sort of work. So for me to say outright that I had a poltergeist case that I think was genuine, that had an impact on my life, and it had a significant impact on my life in a number of ways, for me is quite an important thing. We spoke, I think, either before we came on or earlier on about that idea of ruling out everything possible about it being a rational explanation. You know, this case, when the family recognised that it had an entity which could be a poltergeist or some poltergeist phenomena, I was very open with them and said to them, you know, I think this is possibly fake. Someone is faking this. You know, before we even look at anything alternative or external, we've got to look for a root cause. And I went into that whole approach by doing interviews with the family, by looking at rational factors, by looking at the social dynamics, by looking at mental health factors, looking at relationship factors. I did loads of research beforehand, before I even went to that property and had a discussion with them, albeit the phenomenon at that point that I was experiencing was quite interesting and quite intriguing at that point. So that's kind of the background to that. So do you guys want me to get into kind of how it came about and what happened?
Yeah, that would be great.
I just want to say, you know, that's absolutely brilliant what you do as well. That you actually, like us as paranormal investigators, the proper way of actually doing an investigation is by looking at all the background, which you did.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's like you get a lot of paranormal teams out there, but just there to do the ghost hunting. But if you're going to help and to assist somebody, it's always good to know the background. For example, marriage. Have they had like medical history? Have they had like drug history? Have they got alcohol history? Is there anything that's been wrong in the past that, you know, that could be reflected on this behaviour now within the house? Does the person sleepwalk, for example? In which case, when they wake up, it's them that's actually moved it. So there's a lot of like there's a lot of stuff that you've got to take into consideration. And with what you've just said, you know, you've touched on a lot of good topics and good areas, which because that's how an actual investigation should be carried out.
Yeah, 100%. And I was very honest with the family, and when it's very rare that I will investigate what a haunting is, because my belief is that if it's genuine, you know, it needs a formal approach. And I think pure genuine, particularly poltergeist cases, pure genuine poltergeist cases are incredibly rare. And I had said to the family at that time, as part of the agreement, me going into work with them, was that they weren't to have anyone else into the family. They weren't to have any other investigators into the situation. They was to allow me to deal with it and allow me to take control of that situation. Not because of my ego or anything like that, but just purely because I wanted to make sure that we could rule out every factor possible to make sure that it was genuine or there was an alternative explanation. The thing I'd just say with that as well is that this case, it happened in Pontefract, so it's about an hour's journey from where I am. I never took any money for this case. I never took anything from them as a family. They offered me petrol money at times, and I did take that, but it was never a sense of charging them to go do it. It was genuinely about trying to help that family, because at the core of that, you had a family that was genuinely distressed, genuinely confused, and genuinely feared for their safety. You know, it was a very, very interesting, very intriguing situation that was occurring at that point.
That's really good, because it's like, us as paranormal investigators, and as Wendy as being the psychic as well, it's like, to be able to go and help somebody, there shouldn't be really a fee on that, because you're going to actually take care of that person. You know what I mean? They've reached out to you to bring like peace within their life, and if you've got the ability to be able to use your tools, why shouldn't you be able to do that to make somebody's life better?
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
I never charge anything for spirit rescue at all.
It's like Bob said here, research is the key to a lot of that goes on. Sometimes buildings can also hold a lot of secrets to be known. I think what he meant. Sorry about that. I think what he meant by that is that when you do go out on an investigation, there could be so many noises, facts. Age, for example, age makes wood expand, and you got to look at different things that can
Aspects of it.
like affect an investigation.
Yeah, 100%. And it is, and I guess, as I was saying earlier, you know, going into that situation with that family and saying that I didn't want anyone else involved, it was to manage those controls and to make sure that we were dealing with it in an effective way.
Good.
So,
did you take anybody with you?
I took people with me. I took one other person with me just for evidence, just for someone to back me up, and for my own safety as well, because I genuinely didn't know what I was walking into. You know, it was quite a difficult situation to kind of go into. You know, the family dynamics itself, the house that it was happening in. So the family had been there for 50 years, never experienced any other paranormal activity in that property. And I was dealing with the daughter of the family, and it was her mum and dad's house. Now, within that house, there was an uncle figure, mum, dad, and then this daughter's son, so the grandson. So going into that and trying to manage it was quite sort of a complex situation to start off with. Yeah. But do you guys want? It's quite a lengthy case. Do you want me to sort of get into sort of what happened with it and where it went? Is that all right? So. One of the things I must stress with this is that at my house, I protect my house. When I do meditation on a daily basis, I protect my house to the high hill. Before I went to go see this case, I am a genuine believer in poltergeist phenomena. I think, as a personal opinion, that is open to change. I was always very much of this opinion. If there's all these negative energies, where are they all, and what is the evidence for it? And it wasn't a case I didn't believe, but I needed a strong evidence base for it. So I've been of that mindset for quite a while. But this family came to see me during lockdown, so it was as you was allowed people back into it. It was in 2020, and had this lady come to my house for a reading. I knew absolutely nothing about it, and I remember looking out my window and thinking, "Oh, she's here." And I thought, "God, that's odd. She's got a little boy with her." Anyway, I thought, that's weird. That don't normally happen. He can come stay at my house. He can come watch my TV and stuff. I'll do the reading. I opened the door. And I said, "Oh, where's the little boy?" And she said, "I haven't got one with me." And I said to her, "Oh, that's a bit odd." I thought that's a bit weird. Anyway, we start doing this reading, and I was saying to her, "Oh, you understand Mum's got things happening in the house, the TV's turning on." She was like, yeah. And she started to tell me a little bit about it. And we kind of ended the reading. And she was saying to me, "I know it's a bit odd, but our Sky TV is talking to us. We've had issues with it for a while where it's flipping from screen to screen, and it's going from one channel to the God channel, back to another channel, back to here, back to there, and flipping on these channels." They'd had Sky out at that point 5 times. They couldn't get the Wi-Fi for Sky working upstairs. They couldn't get this TV to stop. And the final Sky engineer that came along said to them jokingly, "Oh, if we don't sort it, it must be a ghost." So anyway, I've got this lady saying to me that a TV's talking to the family. She was saying to me that it was saying that it was family members that had passed, that they weren't safe in the house, that her daughter, the lady comes to me, she wasn't safe in her own house, there's this evil energy there, and that they needed to get out and she wasn't safe, and they just kept saying she wasn't safe. Now, that was fascinating in itself, and she showed me the video. She showed me the videos of the screen typing, showed me the remotes, and bearing in mind, her mum and dad are in the late 70s. Her mum had had a stroke. She'd had issues as a result of that. Her dad was poor physical health. The uncle in that scenario was an older male as well. He used an old Nokia burner phone, so he didn't have a normal phone. So he'd used an older phone. So it just felt like an odd situation. She said to me, the only thing is that some of the dates and some of the names are slightly wrong, that they're typing. Now, that for me was a bit of an indicator that actually maybe they were pretending to be someone else.
Yeah.
So I said to them, maybe it's a poltergeist case. And I said to them, I'm happy to come investigate. And as I said earlier on, I said to them, I think this, it could be someone else that's doing it. I said to grandson, he could be well techie. He could well be doing this and doing it to cause issues in the family. And I said, we need to go investigate that. And I just said to her as a comment leaving, I said, if it happens tonight, ring me. And I said, when he's talking to the TV, because I could talk to it and ask it questions, so it would type back and answer questions. And one of the subcontext of that, it was able to tell them what other family members were doing in houses away from that home as well, which is interesting. So there's able to ask it questions, and it could go away and say, oh, this person's, at the time it was about a drink, what's this person drinking? And it typed back Newcastle Brown, which is just interesting that it would do that. So it was able, that clear energy that was stepping forward. But I said to them, oh, when you go home tonight, if it starts again, tell them you've been to see Medium Joe and see what it says. And I'm not going to swear, but she rang me that night. She said, oh, you're not going to believe this. We asked, it started typing again. And we said, oh, we've been to see Medium Joe. What do you think of that? And it deleted what it said. And it come out with a load of expletus. And it said, die, 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 die. F you, die, 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 die.
Oh, wow.
Now, I'd spoken to them beforehand. So for those who don't know, poltergeist, the phenomena tends to take a certain trajectory. So it tends to start happening things, like certain things start happening. So things start moving, things start flying about. That night, they had multiple things happen. So they had pieces of coal landing on the stairs. They had things moving about. They had things turning on upstairs. Just incredibly odd things happening. The mobile phones in the house were all ringing. The house phone was ringing. There was having voicemails left from withheld numbers. Incredibly odd situation to the extent that the females left that house. The 2 older males slept downstairs in the house that night. Now, that happened on a Friday night, and I couldn't go on that Saturday as much as I wanted to because my children were with me, and I couldn't go. I couldn't leave them to go.
Yeah.
And it kind of settled down the night after. They started some more calls and stuff, but it kind of settled down. And on the Sunday, as I had opportunity to go, so I went to, not that house specifically, I went to the daughter's house first to go listen to these voicemails. And these voicemails that she'd had on her phone were all static, so all like 30 seconds long, a minute long, static, really odd sounds coming through. And there's no voices on them or anything, just really strong static. Now, whether or not this was coincidental or not, I don't honestly know. But as that happened, the dog next door, I've got this on video as well, so I had video on all this at the time.
Okay.
I've never heard a sound like this from this dog come out. It was sweet. It was like it'd been hit by a car. And it's just such a just listening to those voicemails. It was quite odd, really. But anyway, later on that day, I went to the house. Now, one of the things that had been happening at that point as well is that the Alexa had been playing music to them. So Alexa had been playing Frank Sinatra and playing children's rhymes and nurseries and stuff, just randomly coming on. Now, little old me goes into that house, slightly apprehensive after what had happened at the weekend, what I'd seen on the videos, and what I'd seen on the voicemails as well. Walk into the house, walk around, sense absolutely nothing. They've had all this electrical stuff happening, all these Lexas going off, the TV going off, all these different things. I feel absolutely nothing. I say as a comment to the dad who's showing me around, I say to him, I'm surprised you've not had the printer go off yet, because I've got a printer there. And I say to them, obviously I can't feel anything. I'm going to have to come back, particularly when the lady's mum was there, because she was out at that point. Because I thought quite often with poltergeist cases, there's an agent, isn't there? There's something that's connecting with it.
Yeah, something that's like,
Yeah.
And I wasn't sure if it was mum. The grandson, interestingly, he was having a lot of heart problems. So when we was having phenomena happening in the house, he was collapsing to the extent that they was having to call ambulances. So that was my other factor, that maybe he was possibly the agent for it as well. Anyway, as I go to leave, I say I'll come back in a bit. The Alexa turns on and starts playing Frank Sinatra. Now, it was just a bit of an odd situation. You've got to understand, I'm hyper vigilant in that. So I am making sure that no one's got the phone there. I'm telling them to put the phones on the table. What's happening? I'm telling them I'm trying to get as much control of it as possible.
yeah.
Try and turn the Alexa off. It comes back on, and I'm sat shaking at this point, thinking just this is a little bit odd. I go to leave, to go back to their daughter's house, just to have respite, wait for mum to come back. And I'm saying to the daughter in the car, I'm saying, have you been somewhere? Have you used the Ouija board? What have you done? Where has this thing come from? Because for 50 years, I've had absolutely nothing. And she says to me that she went to Revesby Abbey. So I'm just making a note on my phone.
You were, sorry.
She said she'd been to Revesby Abbey to go do a ghost hunt a couple of years before. And we got back to her house. And her dad rang, and he said to me, the printer's just started printing, and it printed off a picture of a guy's face imposed over another picture, and it said, "This is me, run." And it had that stated at the bottom of it.
Okay.
And then the thing that got me to believe it was, he said, the next picture come out, and it said, "F you," and the lady's name. "This is where I met you at Revesby Abbey." And it was just that oddest thing ever. Even now, like, I'm getting sort of my hair stands on it, because it was just an odd scenario, odd situation to occur. No one else knew about that conversation. There's no way she could have rang or said anything to anyone. Went back round to the house at that point, and then just on Bob's chat, absolutely lots of people do have connections with that. I've got another case I've dealt with since where he separately from this, a chap was talking to his daughter about heaven and hell, and his Alexa came on. It said, "Oh, ask me where I've come from," and then stopped, which is a bit odd. But anyway, we went back.
I had that the other night.
We went back to this house. So at this point, and I think this is really key, at that point, I'd made a genuine decision to think, this is genuine, I'm dealing with it. There wasn't a case of trying to work out where this had come from or what was happening with it. I wanted to get rid of it because I know how complex and how dangerous these situations can be.
Yeah.
We went back in, it's printing off all these different pictures on the printer. They're all sat there looking bemused. I go in, I say, we're turning the printer off. I'm not having this. I said, we're going to deal with this. I got them all from the kitchen into the living room. I was the last person in the kitchen. There was a big cross about that big on the table as I left that kitchen. We went into that room. I did protection. I did a prayer. I did a whole thing around the house for protection.
Yeah.
Later on, before going into the rest of the house, I went back into the kitchen. That cross was wedged between the chair and the table. And I'm talking about a big glass cross like that. So it's not something you'd lean wedged there. No one else could have gone into that kitchen at that point. It was just the oddest thing ever. Now, what's interesting about that situation is when I did that prayer and I did that closing prayer, an alarm went off across the road. At that point, as I said amen, an alarm went off across the road, which was odd in itself. One of the things that sticks out in my mind about that situation and that scenario was the dad. After I said, I think we've got rid of it, he went outside and collapsed on the floor. You know, that look of shock and despair on his face, I've never seen anything like it. So we kind of get to that point with it. So that's the first phase of it. I talk to them. It's a bit odd. It's a bit weird. I say to them, look, I think we've managed it. I think we've managed to sort of navigate our way through it. After I leave, they turn the printer on. The printer prints off the rest of what is printed off, and it had 2 black A4 pieces of paper, and it had typed on it, "Help, what is he doing? I'm scared. Where is he sending me?" Now, part of guys are quite manipulative, aren't they? So obviously that's going to be manipulative. And I spoke to him about that. The uncle in that house, and you can ask the family about this if you were to speak to them. The uncle, the day before, I said he wasn't very good technologically. He thought that it had started again on his phone, and he went downstairs and they got a bit confused at it. He was that scared that the uncle, the mum, dad, the daughter, they all went to the church to pray in the middle of the day. The uncle had not been to a christening, a family funeral, a wedding for well over 50 years, just never went to them. So that's how powerful it was, that the fact he thought it was that genuine that he went to church. And again, that stands out in my mind. So that happened in sort of mid 2020, so June 2020, that sort of era. Nothing happens for ages. I get to October and I'm doing a reading one night online, and the lady whose house the daughter rings me, and I think, God, that's odd. Why is she contacting me? And she says, "You're not going to believe it. It's come back." It was printing photos of me on the printer, extreme expletives, saying "F you" with the word C, saying "die, die, die." Joe is, "You're not safe. Joe's not safe," and really quite direct at me. Now, I just want to go back a couple of steps because I think that happened in the October. In the September, I'd flipped my calendar over at home, and I heard a voice in my head saying, "You won't be here next year."
You won't be
And I
here
thought,
next
"Oh,
year.
that's a bit odd."
Wow.
I just want to go back to the beginning of this story when that lady said that I came to the house and I could see a little boy with her. That little boy that wasn't there, I think that was that poltergeist. And the fact that in my head I'd said to her, thinking it was a little boy, "Oh, it can come into my house and sit and watch TV." I think I'd invited it into my house. It managed to get into my house. And it had tricked me. Now, that is something that I'd never ever thought I would say, and I'd never be open to saying. Just to put that into context, and just to put into context for other people, at that point when that all started happening at that house again, the energy in my house was incredibly odd, incredibly bizarre. My skin was all crawling. Now, I've got friends who are all very level-headed, don't believe in this work. And I'm saying to all of them, if you don't believe this, you are more than welcome to come witness some of it. You are more than welcome to come along. If you don't believe me. My friend come to my house one night, and he was joking around. It was kind of getting ready to go there that night to go see if we would explore any phenomena, because everything had happened again. The TV was going on. It was having jewelry put on lights. It was having pictures taken off the wall. You know, in films where you walk into a room and all the doors are open, the cabinets, really odd stuff. But my mate, he was saying to me, he was in my house and he was kind of mocking me. He was saying, "Oh, if this thing's real, that picture will fall off the wall." My picture dropped off the wall. And he was like, "Nah, that's a coincidence." And he put it back on the wall. And he's like, "Oh, this is real. It happened again. The picture dropped off the wall." It's just the oddest thing ever. This energy in my house was such just a weird thing. So this kind of happened in sort of October time. We went through Halloween as well. It took months to get rid of this energy from their house. I managed to clear it from my house, but it took months. And what I realized at the time, I'd go round and it was mocking me and it was trying to say to me, "You're not winning, you're not doing this." But actually, the work I was doing over a period of time, clearing the house, clearing the energy, was working. It was just taking a lot longer than I anticipated. And I was doubting myself within that. A slightly fond memory. I go on several occasions. I said to them, "Oh, I think we've got it this time. I think we've sorted it." I'd get in my car and I'd start playing Alexa. I'd start playing Ghostbusters on the Alexa upstairs in the house. You know, just to wind me up. But during this time, you know, the family was still connected, catching phenomena. One of the things I remember is that I've got a video on my phone where she's doing a video upstairs. She goes into the bathroom, does a turnaround, goes back out, and she goes back in, and the shower's on. And it's not an electric one, it's a knob that you turn. It's the full funnel that you turn.
Okay, yeah.
There's lots of little odd things like that happening. So that happened for quite a while. It got that bad that I was seeking external advice from people from in America. I'd contacted the church as well. The church blessed me that I'd see January. Now, it just felt a bit odd, and it still feels a bit odd saying that now, that the church would do that. So as we continue, kept doing energy work in the house, doing lots of different things to try and reduce that energy, trying to reduce the aspect of it. One of the things that I got very savvy to with this energy was that it was very good at using electrical items. It was also very good at using emotional energy. So it would try and say people's names that it could get there to get emotional energy from them. So it was using electrical energy, but it was also using the energy of individuals as well. So you had to cut that factor into it as well. It got to the point where we put cameras in the house. Now, the energy was starting to slowly die down over this time. And what had gone from every night or every other night was going to every other week and going to periodically. And it kind of stopped for a little bit of time. And being genuine with it, going back and forth to Pontefract, it was getting a little bit sort of draining, a little bit frustrating. Thinking that I wasn't dealing with it properly, trying to understand it, trying to work it out. And she rang me one night and she said, "Oh, the TV started again, but it's not making sense." And I find interesting that when a mum went to go put the kettle on, when she put the kettle on and it was boiling, it could type again. So it could type freely.
Okay.
So isn't that interesting? That disconnect, the fact that it was using somehow energy in that house to manage things.
Yeah.
Before I continue with that, it got to the point with the mum where she'd go to bed at night and watch Corrie, and it would start typing on the TV upstairs, and she'd just say, "F off," pardon my language, but F off and turn the TV off and go to bed. It got that normal for them. How interesting is the fact that it got that normal for them. But that night where she rang me, she said that, I said to her, "We've got cameras in the house now. Tell it to do something on the screens." And with that, there was a massive scream and the line cut off. Now, she'd rang me on WhatsApp Messenger, and I couldn't get hold of her for about 10, 15 minutes. And she rang me back and she said that her son, who had been asleep, so had been on a night shift, had screamed. And at the point he'd screamed, not only did the lights go out in the house, but the whole village had power cut. So we've got all the times for the calls, we've got all the WhatsApp calls, the messaging calls, and we've got a statement from an article online to say that there'd been a power cut at that point. Now, the reason the grandson had screamed was because he was dreaming and he'd dreamt, I think his great aunt had come and touched him on the leg and said, "You're safe now." And at that point, that's when they had the massive power cut. So that was the end of that case. Now, interestingly, there's a couple of things with that, and I'll happily answer the questions for you. But hopefully that makes sense. But that house, I later discovered, which would have been probably handy to know before, is 2 miles from 30 East Drive. So it's literally 2 miles down the road.
Yeah.
That case, that I'll be, whether people think that's genuine now, there seems to be some sort of belief that was genuine at the time of that occurring. So quite an interesting area. Away from all that, just to sort of explain the impact on myself, I had nightmares for months after experiencing that case with some of the things that I'd witnessed, seeing the TV happen. That energy, I'd never felt anything like it, and it took me a long, long time to really get over. Even now,
I know, he was giving you like broken sleep and stuff.
Yeah.
I remember when I went to a place and I went to help him to clear it, and I managed to get all the children like sort of rescued and stuff like that, and it left me with like a really bad. Like, I was attacked, and I actually got photos somewhere to show about it where my eye was all bad and my jaw and my ear. But after that, after I left that building, and I thought, right, everything's sorted, everything's all, calm down, go home. And I think it was about a month, maybe two, where between like a certain time, it was just broken sleep. Did you have that sort of effect when you went after leaving the shop?
Yeah, absolutely. It creeped me out for a long time, that fear that it instilled, because that's part of its role, that's part of its purpose, that fear it instilled, it did last. It's made me stronger moving forward. It's made me a lot more, it's made me a better person, and it's made me a better medium as well. That experience is just.
How long did it get you to take you, to get over it. I can imagine it to be quite frightening for, you know, someone like me who's not a medium in any way, shape, or form. So how did you feel, sort of going in, sort of when you finally realised that it was poltergeist activity rather than it could have been a family member, or how did you feel? I'm really intrigued.
I think it was an emotional roller coaster. So am I 100% over it? No, I don't know if I am. If I had the opportunity to ever deal with something like that again, rightly or wrongly, and people may criticise me, I'd go into that house by myself and spend the night there.
That was my next question.
I would as well.
You know, and I would trust the process of it. You know, rightly or wrongly, that's probably a very dangerous thing to do, and I do acknowledge that. But I guess it's about having that absolute proof and seeing that phenomena. You know, people will talk about poltergeist and they'll talk about them they'll attribute some kind of phenomena as poltergeist, but true poltergeist cases take a specific sort of pattern.
I'm sorry to interrupt, Joe. Are you close to your microphone? Because there's a lot of echo coming from you.
Oh, is that mine? I apologise. Is that better?
No.
Say something.
Is it mine? Oh, it could be mine, is it?
If we all speak at once, so if I go first and you go, then we'll be able to work out where it's coming from. Hello? Am I echoing?
No.
Am I? Am I not?
I don't think I should be.
Hello?
Am I? Sorry, go on.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, so it's not me that's see, there's like the scratches that are sound. It's like another conversation is going on under yours. It's exactly what I think.
Martin.
There's
I'm not
been
sure.
a few odd noises.
Yeah, there has been a few odd noises.
Bob said it sounds like another conversation that's going on underneath our conversation.
Yeah.
I, for one, thought I heard a man's voice.
Say that again, Wendy.
I, for one, thought I'd heard a man's voice.
It's actually got worse now that you've.
I pointed it out, it's got worse, hasn't it?
Now you've mentioned it. Do you not hear anything, Joe?
Yeah, I can hear it. I don't think it's myself. I've just been on mute for the last sort of minute and a half.
Bob said also a while ago there was a blast of loud noise, almost like someone shouting a man.
Yeah, I
you
heard
just said, Wendy.
Right.
I wonder, shall we, if we ask questions, should we pop on mute in between? Will that be helpful? So unless we've got a question, pop on mute. That might put that noise out, shall it?
It's up to you if you want.
Let's try.
What?
I don't know how to mute. There it is.
Well, I'm
on mute.
Right. Yeah, well, I don't, that's kind of cut it out a little bit, hasn't it? But it's still there a little bit in the background. Yeah. Who had a question anyway? Should we continue? Should we try and do it?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's continue.
Oh, we've lost you, Wendy.
Do you have an Alexa in your house?
I do have an Alexa, but they are not turned on for that very reason. I don't want things happening.
Mine has been stalking me all week.
Say that again, sorry, Wendy.
My Alexa keeps stalking me. It turns on, and then nothing's said. Then it'll turn on again, and it'll ask a question that we've no idea where it came from.
Yeah, that is weird. I have mine purposely turned off so nothing can communicate through them.
Yeah.
I think I might sell mine.
So what was your procedure on getting rid of it?
I guess that's a really interesting question. There's two aspects to that. there's two types of poltergeist phenomena. One is where there's an emotional agent that is triggering that. The other is genuine spirit phenomena that occurs. So the first aspect was working out if it was an emotional aspect and dealing with that person. And I don't think it was. I think it was a genuine entity. So my way of dealing that was protecting the house, absolutely blasting it with white light, using sage, using all these different ways and different formulas to try and get rid of it, not just using one technique. So I was drawing on different sort of resources from Society for Psychical Research, from Christianity, from my own beliefs, from Buddhism, using all these different techniques just to try and get rid of that energy in that house. My understanding is it was quite a complex and challenging energy. That's why I think we had that spirit intervention at the end to get rid of it. But I think it required someone to go in and just change that energy over a period of time and reduce that. Also, as well as a caveat to that, working with the families, so helping them understand how it was operating and how we was dealing with it as well, to try and remove that energy and try to remove that dynamic where it could influence and interact with their energies, the electric in the house to produce phenomena. Oh, Martin, you're on mute, sir.
Sorry about that. So did they try anything before they...
Did they what? Sorry, sir.
Sorry about this. Did they try anything before they actually contacted you?
No, it was just by chance one of the family members knew of me and had suggested going to see a medium. So I was kind of the first protocol that they'd gone to, really. So they hadn't dealt with anything like this before. They wasn't sure what to do. And I guess a logical step for them was to turn to a psychic or a medium that might be able to answer that question for them.
I get that. So, are you still in contact with these individuals?
Yeah, I am. Unfortunately, the mum in that scenario has since passed away. I think it's really sweet that I woke up that night that she passed away and she came to visit me, and I'd messaged her again. I've got this on my phone that I'd messaged the lady at that point, saying, "Oh, I think your mum's finally passed away," and that was a nice little thought. Just away from that, I will just ask you just to reflect on this. I think that energy was an incredibly complex energy, and I think it was a very difficult energy to understand and work with. The reason I mentioned about the alarm going off and about it being 2 miles away from 30 East Drive was because I think this energy could bounce from place to place, and I think that's part of how it got away. And I think that's an interesting and a completely separate conversation to have. I think it was very good at manipulating the scenarios.
Do you think it was ley lines, Joe?
I think that could be a factor with it, since that lady has passed. The father in that house has had very similar on one occasion instance where he's found flowers on the bed. He's found a picture of his wife hung on a light switch. Little odd things. Now, his view, and rightly or wrongly so, he thinks that's his wife showing her way that she's still around and she's with him. I struggle with that a little bit, that why would she do something that's very similar to that poltergeist energy? So it's an odd little situation, and being 100% honest, I don't know how I feel about that. But I genuinely don't think we could have done any more to try and get rid of that, or done any more at that point to try and get rid of it. I think we possibly did everything we could. But for me, that's what poltergeist cases are. They're spontaneous, they're short term, and they leave you probably a lot more questions than they ever do with answers.
Yeah. And it's like sometimes when you actually go to help a poltergeist activity and you actually think that you've helped him and it's gone quiet, you've only made things worse. Did you find any of that sort of thing happen?
Yeah, absolutely. To be honest with you, I think the family were really quite confused afterwards. And again, the wider family, it caused quite a lot of issues in the family. There was quite heavily criticised by aspects of the family. And they allowed me to document aspects of it. However, none of them was speaking publicly about it. We've not mentioned any names today or anything like that. it had quite a profound impact on them. And over time, I did a lot of debriefing, certainly with the daughter, who just really struggled to understand how that had come about and what had gone on at that point. I'd be interested to know what their thoughts are on it now. I know it touched them, and it certainly changed them. It really did certainly change them.
That's really good, man. That's really good. To show that there was somebody that they was able to turn to get help. It goes along the lines of what we have created as LSS. And, it's fantastic to see that you was there to help them, and you didn't take any money. You went and did your actual investigation properly, how it should have been conducted. So, with what you're saying, do you think that the actual spirit has gone, or do you think the reminiscence is still there? And I can hear a girl.
Yeah.
I can hear a girl or a woman, yeah.
A woman.
This is really strange.
Yeah.
Bob,
I think.
could you see if you can, sorry about this, I'm just going to speak to my Bob. If you can get this recording down, bro, and then see what you can find on it, please.
He's recorded it. There's a woman, Bob's recorded it.
Wow.
Sorry about this, Joe.
Thanks, Bob.
Yeah, Bob's part of LSS. He does a lot of research and stuff, and he tries to debunk everything before we can say, right, spiritual. But then when that woman was talking, it's only me talking, nobody else was communicating.
I can still hear the woman.
Yeah, even like there, when I'm talking. Yeah, do you hear it there?
Yeah. Yeah.
Whoa, really cool.
Record it with my task cam as well.
So, as you were saying,
I can't remember what the question was, but
Sorry.
Bob Sapp just says keep going as it seems to be women when you talk, but it's all garbled.
I'm recording it away from the computer as well, so we'll see what it picks up.
So what's your thoughts on this, Joe?
Yeah, what's happening right now? What's your opinion?
Oh, I am all.
Technology or?
I am a man of science, so for me, I think it's probably. I wonder if it's something technological, but I'm open to sort of being proved wrong. It is odd though, isn't it? It's stopped now a little bit, which is interesting.
It was a bit weird because when we were talking about the poltergeist, there was almost like this like crash and like a drawer opening and a man talking.
Yeah. Well, I'll be interested to see what Bob can get. It should be interesting.
Yeah, definitely.
Bob's really good at doing this debunking and that, because he actually does the debunking, and then what's left over is the proof. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we don't go, yes, that's paranormal, because now I'm looking around me and saying, right, what could be interfering and women's voice through? So it's like, you know what I mean? So it seems like every time when somebody talks, it keeps doing that. So it's very interesting.
Strange.
I guess we should invite somebody else on the screen.
I've just checked my noise cancellation and sound suppression, and they are all on in the background. So from my perspective, it should be.
And this should do it automatically, Martin.
I'm just checking what he said about these. Yeah, echo cancellation is on, noise suppression is on.
And I sound like a man.
Yeah.
Well,
I know
that's great.
I'm a smoker, but I'm a guy.
So anyway, we're coming towards. We've got 5 minutes left on an hour. I just want to thank you for coming on tonight, Joe. It's been really appreciated. We're cool if we can bring you on live again and we can get further into it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's quite a complex case, and what I would say is that, you know, I don't think there's a finite answer. You know, I'm always open to people's different views and perspectives on it. You know, what my view is just that. It's just purely a view, an experience of it, and I've tried to filter out the emotional aspect of it and look at it from a rational perspective. You know, but I am absolutely open to people challenging and questioning and trying to understand it in a different way, because ultimately that's how you learn, isn't it? And ultimately that's how you develop further knowledge on this subject.
Yeah, when Martin talks, it sounds like a child. It could be a text, but when Wendy talks, it sounds like a man in the background. So it's pretty weird. But yeah, we just want to appreciate you. Hopefully you'll come on to, we've got different channels that we do. So we've got Road to Enlightenment, we've got LSS USA, we've got the LSS that we do, then we've also got the Wendy show, which then she's going to be doing a lot more, talking different paranormal investigations, psychic, and then there'll be our Bob that will also be doing stuff. And he gets quite deep. He likes to get to roots and stuff, and then see how we can debunk it and what was real. And he's really cool with stuff like that. So it'd be really, really fantastic if you could take part in all our shows sometime. Obviously, we contact you in the future.
Yeah, 100%. Just thank you for your time.
Because the story's been this what's happened, the story that's happened, and it's so intriguing. And it's like I can coincide that with my visit to Hell House, and it's like something that I can comprehend and say, yeah, I can see how that worked and what happened there. That happened to me. So it's really interesting.
And I can see a lot of similarities in some of the cases I've worked on, but especially when I was having issues as a child and all the paranormal activity around that was happening. So yeah. Thank you very much, Joe, for being on tonight.
Yeah, no worries.
Yeah, it's been really, really interesting. Thank you, Joe. I was so looking forward to your poltergeist experience.